had a couple of, I'm a little bit ahead of the game. It's just almost lunchtime here in Las Vegas. And I have a break in the action before I jump into the next series of things on my agenda. And I said, you know what? I can go live right quick. So here's what I'm gonna do. And I actually thought of something that I like to talk about. I'm gonna tell two stories. But as always, in these two stories is profound lessons or insights I think that we can all use. And in many cases, with the stories I like to tell, we are in the stories of our own lives, the many different characters that are in the stories that I tell, right? So, hey Anna, welcome. Welcome to my impromptu Facebook Live. So here's the two things. I'm gonna tell two stories about teachers. And I love experiments, and I love hearing the results of experiments. And then I love just taking the results of experiments and seeing, how I might use the lesson in that experiment to give me an advantage, to give me an edge, to give me insight, to help me, right? To make my circumstance serve me a little bit more than it does normally. So in the spirit of that, that's why I'm going to share these two stories. The first one, I think I heard this at my college graduation. I can't remember exactly, but that's the way I remember it in my head many, many years ago. So who knows if I got that right? But anyway, the story's about this teacher, this really good teacher. And the teacher was actually telling us the story of the moment, the thing that happened to him that completely changed how he approached teaching forever. It fundamentally changed who he was as a teacher, and it fundamentally changed how he approached the craft of being a teacher. And he said that he was a teacher, and it was parent-teacher night. And the parents were in the classroom and coming up and introducing themselves. And one of the parents walked up to him and said, hi, I'm Johnny's mother. And the teacher he said, I just lit up. And I just started telling her how awesome of a student Johnny was and how bright he was and just how creative and intentioned and in tune. And she just went on singing the praises of Johnny, right? And he said, and the mother seemed just surprised, just kind of taken by that, which he thought was a little odd, but he went on to say how great of a student Johnny was. And then, the teacher kind of walked off. And then he went to the next teacher, but he said when he looked back around the teacher, and looked around the classroom, he realized that she was the mother of John, not Johnny. And John was a different kid. John was the class clown. John was always goofing off. John was never performing to his level that he could. John was always complaining. And he said, and he was honest. He said, I didn't have the heart. I just didn't have the heart to go back to the parent and say, I was actually talking about a different kid. He just let it go. But then the interesting thing happened as the rest of the year unfolded. He said, the odd thing was that as the rest of the year unfolded, John became a different student. John was no longer the class clown. John was no longer working below his ability. John was now attentive. John completely changed. And it made him realize that he changed the perception of John and even John's mother, and he imagined that they must have had some kind of conversation when they went home. She said something, or she treated him different, or something happened. And then John actually became the type of student that he was singing the accolades about. He said it forever changed how he approached the craft of teaching. And to this point, he takes to a much more serious degree the role of expectations and the role that expectations play and all of that good stuff. I just thought it was a great story, and there's a lot of insight into that, right? Because had he not made a mistaken, talked about the wrong John to the parent, then John's life would have been completely different, we can imagine, right? He would have continued to be the class clown, blah, 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 blah. So that one mistake, that one mistaken moment, and that one different explanation of who John was in the eyes of this other person completely changed John's life. So that's story number one. The other story is very similar, but this was an actual experiment done where they arbitrarily, the scientists arbitrarily picked a classroom, arbitrarily, no rhyme or reason to it. They just picked a classroom, they just picked a teacher, and then they arbitrarily picked a handful of people in the class. And then before the class season started, they pulled the teacher aside and they gave her a list of the randomly chosen kids and said that, hey, we just wanted to warn you, and unfortunately, it's kind of luck of the draw, but you got these 5 kids, and they're not. They may be a little slow, they may be a little problematic, so just be aware. And then they just let the teacher go on about her life. And then what they did was they came in at the end of the term and looked at the evaluations of all the kids. And those 5 people that they randomly picked out were graded according to what they told the teacher those kids were. Less performing, not up to speed, troubled, blah, 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 blah. And then they took a different class, an arbitrary, random people selection, took random kids and went to this teacher and said, hey, good news, luck of the draw. You got the 5 brightest kids in the school in your class this year. Same arbitrarily, randomly picked 5 kids. And then they let the teacher do her thing and at the end, or his thing, and at the end of the period, they went and they looked at the evaluations, and sure enough, those 5 kids were assessed to be exceptional, gifted, ahead, smart, blah, 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 all the good stuff. And then, as I understand it, they took this one step further. They then, for the second term, took the same kids, switched the teachers, but reversed the stories. Took the 5 students that were bad, made them good, and told them that they were the good students, or took the 5 students that were good and told the students, unfortunately, you got the trouble kids, and then waited for the teacher to do her thing or his thing and see how the kids tested out in their performance. And guess what? Yep. There was always consistency between the expectations of the teacher and the children, regardless, as we know they were randomly chosen, regardless of the actual capabilities and performance of the children as we can imagine in the story now. And that just goes to, the takeaway from both of these stories are that expectations matter, expectations matter. So the question I have for you on this bonus Tune-Up Tuesday, on this paid version of the Tune-Up Tuesday that I might miss in the future, but the personal thought challenge I'm going to have for you, the reflective and introspective challenge I'm going to have for you is, what job are you doing with the expectations you're setting on the people that you care about? That's one. The other question is, what expectation has been put on somebody evaluating you that's not reflective of your actual performance? You now realize that this might give you some insight a little into why, no matter what you might seem to do and or say, people just can't acknowledge it. It might just be because they have the wrong expectations. They have the wrong framework, right? How are you approaching and talking to your teammates? Are you approaching them as if they are the gifted teammates? Are you approaching them as if they are the troubled teammates? Have you even thought about how you are approaching your team? Which way are you naturally leaning in any of your interpersonal interactions? There's no right or wrong to any of this. I'm just giving you things to think about. Eric Swanson, I got some outstanding humans on my broadcast today. We got Mr. Russ Moon, who's killing it on the kettlebell crazy monster stuff, and Eric Swanson out doing his thing with the Habitude Warriors, and Jeremy James, the one-man band, Mr. Stancil Johnson on his mighty quest, Charlene Fell, I'm going to say you're in Atlanta doing what you do. I'm guessing. I think that's how I remember it. Christoph, I think you're on the West Coast out here with me somewhere, right? Well, hey guys, I just had a moment and I said, you know what? Let me start to pay it forward a little bit because sometimes we ride the wave and sometimes the wave rides us, right? So, but today I am the wave, baby. I'm ahead of the game. I'm killing it. I'm in a really, really, really good mood. Oh, by the way, private message me if you're. I'm one of those biohacking guys, and I'm into nootropics and things like that, and what I've come across lights you up, man, with mental energy, mood enhancement, focus stuff, and so maybe that's why I'm in such good. That feeds into part of the reason why I might be in such a good mood. I know it is actually. Just private message me. I can get your stuff and send you stuff. But anyway, what I really want to do is get that message out to you, share those experiments with you. I think they're profound and instrumental. I love the story about Johnny because that could be any of us on any given day, right? And it was a mistake. And then he thought to himself, how many lives could he have changed if he just told a different story? Whether it's telling a different story to the kids under his charge, or told a different story to the parents when they came out, or told a different story to himself about the potential in the kids he was going to teach that day, because he made a mistake and it changed Johnny's life. And you could argue that he could have had that same magic on countless lives. And of course he went on to do that because he completely fundamentally changed everything after that mistake. And then when we review the simple act of telling a teacher what kids are able to do in advance, bears itself out in what most people would argue is the real data. Well, kids are kids, and either kids are smart or they're not smart. Let's just look at the data. Well, let's look at the kids, why people in this part of town are underperforming. Well, let's look at why this kind of group, or why this certain segment of society, why are they more fill in the blank? Smarter, better, lazy, not lazy, mad, angry, violent, not violent, passive, whatever. And it might just boil all the way back to that's because that's what the observer was told to look for. And in the absence of that, they capture in the data that they create the support for what they look for because they've been told that to be real. But